Hay una cosa, algo que no me puedo sacar de la cabeza. Es una frase que no sé si la escuché en algún lugar o que soñé, pero que me suena que la podría haber dicho von Merkens.
Se acabó el futuro.
¿Qué significa eso?
No hay doble sentido, Federici. Quiere decir que si lo arruinan, se acabó.
And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat upon him was Death.
It's a very good possibility there is a network of sexual abuse going on in Hollywood amidst high-level movie producers and people with power.
What would give you that idea?
It's just a guess.
I have a movie about that.
There has long been a history of secrecy amongst every group. Every in-group houses some knowledge that the out-group is not allowed to know. The discrepancies in what we find in our common days, I perceive have something to do with religion and politics. And a lot of movies kind of started pointing us in that direction. Some psychologists even talked about the Truman movie effect, a sort of solipsistic direction of secular thinking.
Who are you talking to?
I've tasted other cocos. This is the best.
What the hell?
I think a lot about solipsism and humanitarianism, and how some people see themselves as part of a movie that they're the protagonist in. All of this is said to begin to discuss the movie History of the Occult, or Historia de lo Oculto. In this video, I want to discuss some of the funniest and most entertaining conspiracies I've ever heard of. Since technically the movie has an element of similarity to current trending conspiracy theories. History of the Occult is a movie directed and written by Christian Ponce, the same person who made the Curly and Frequency series, an Argentinian black and white movie shot in a 4x3 box format that discusses brujeria, aka witchcraft and politics. As you may guess already, there's a pretty common conspiracy theory that says that those in charge are trying to push Satanism. Even more so, that there's a secret society within the government that rules from the shadows. It can get pretty interesting when someone like Madison Cawthorn decides to say something crazy in an interview.
Then all of a sudden you get invited to, like, well, hey, we're gonna have kind of a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like,
And in a few weeks we get pictures of him dressed in women's clothes, then touching a guy, then a full-on nude video of him, to which no one even bothers to ask, who the fuck is recording this video? Well, back onto the movie. We follow two sets of people. On one side you got Lucio, Jorge Federici, Maria, and Abel. Then on the other side there's Senator Linares.
Sí, claro que lo conozco, es el NN.
Sociologist Daniel Aguilar.
Y no es solo miedo, no, es histeria colectiva.
Adrián Marcato. And the host of the show, 60 minutos antes de la medianoche, Alfredo.
Se lo marcó como NN.
Or in English, 60 minutes before midnight. You can also include the side story of Natalia if you're being charitable, but I thought that segment was a bit dry. The objective of the movie is simple. Team Lucio is trying to solve the mystery of the connection between Kingdom Corporate, of which Marcato is vice president in, and the President Velasco. Note the little nudge of the Lucio character closely tied in with the word light, and similarly, Lucifer was the light bringer, or the light bearer. But don't get too caught up in all the crazy conspiracy theories I'm gonna throw out, just kind of run with them, just kind of flow with them. During the 60-minute segment, Marcato starts to tell the senator that he has a daughter that he doesn't remember.
Usted su hija la perdió para siempre.
Esto es una falta de respeto. Y no le digo lo que tengo ganas porque estamos en televisión y por respeto al público.
This idea of reframing universes, where the idea revolves around the different universes created by the minute choices we make in life. Each one tying off to a separate strand in time, a little bit different than the predestined notion of the red thread in Noriko's dinner table, that ties into destiny in Japanese culture. Linares then gets upset with all this discussion and leaves the show. Lucio's team realizes they are not getting anywhere. Anabel starts to discuss possibly using drugs to enhance their perception, that is, to see what cannot be seen by our current consciousness. Lucio, Jorge, and Abel eat the tannis root. Back on the show, sociologist Daniel Aguilar grills Marcato, calling him a con man.
Para la gente que lo sigue, Marcato es un brujo. Uno real, sí.
During this whole segment, it became somewhat stale since I was predicting what Marcato was going to say, possibly because I've always enjoyed studying these things.
¿Se sabe dónde vivimos? ¿Y dónde queda Buenos Aires? ¿Y dónde queda Argentina? Yo a una hormiga no puedo explicarle que este es un estudio de televisión.
One thing I was most fascinated and impressed by was the use of sound. Perhaps I'm not surprised that this is the same director from Curly and Frequency. He definitely knows how to use atmospheric sounds to draw you in, like an eerie sound from Twilight Zone. When Jorge tears the red from the side, the sound is almost screaming from the wall. A simple but incredibly effective portion of the movie. I only wish the movie was in color or in 16:9. This is a movie I think would have gotten better in that format. The sociologist then discusses satanic panic and mass hysteria.
De esto. Está todo en mi libro. Pánico satánico. Instalan el miedo. Lo explotan. Se aprovechan.
Which reminds me of that Joe Rogan clip on mass psychosis.
The how question of a third of the population basically being hypnotized.
This movie is seriously spooky. It's not overly scary or intense. It's something about the noise used at a proper time.
A ver. A ver. A ver. A ver, sácame de acá. A ver.
It's just like a sine wave or something. The sociologist Daniel challenges Marcato, saying he's using fear and panic to sell his ideas. To which then Marcato points at his nose, and the sociologist's nose and eyes start bleeding. Marcato is then about to talk about the coven when the channel gets cut off and he starts freaking out. Lucio's team then hears knocking on the door, and Maria goes out to check on it. And maybe because she hasn't taken the Tannis route yet, but she is not able to see the figure in the shadows. The figure reminds me so much of the monster from the first season of Channel Zero. This movie scares me in an odd way, where I'm scared to put on my headphones, but Channel Zero kind of scares me in a backroom sort of way.
Golly! I've never seen a storm wallop the laughingstock quite like this.
Maybe we should abandon ship?
No! Don't leave me!
Team Lucio then decides to do some crazy thing to tap into their consciousness, and in doing so, Lucio gets his brain fried in redness, and Maria gets to see a vision of her discussing the John Doe in question. While this is going on, Abel turns into a plant and touches an octopus. Jorge also sees what looks like a vision, where he's talking to his team, and then he goes on to ask, "Where's Abel?"
¿Quién es Abel?
I'm not sure if these are dreams or visions or what the fuck, but I do know that this could have been pretty interesting on a full screen format.
¿Qué pasó? Es uno de ellos. ¿Qué decís? Abel es un brujo. Lo mató a Lucy y me quiso...
The only two left then are Maria and Jorge. Oh yeah, and also Natalia. She gets followed by a warlock who she shoots or something. Jorge asks Maria questions about how many kids each person has, and she answers more than was initially written, perhaps indicating that she was able to see something that was either forgotten or erased. Towards the end, we hear that Marcato does have a daughter, and Marcato confesses to all the black magic used by him and the President Velasco. He mentions the book, The Things We Lost in the Fire, which delves into the exact things of this movie. Marcato disappears and everything comes into color with the screams of "Can you see it?" as the last words of the movie. Needless to say, this is a belief I've heard before, and I'm sure many of you heard it before, that those in power are in a sort of cabal or secret society.
You've been digging, Luke, and if you keep digging, you're gonna dig your own grave. What? You didn't think they wouldn't figure out what you've been doing? How they know everything we do?
it's a total paradigm shift.
It's red-pilled a lot of people.
Open their eyes to the realities of pedophilic corruption. Do you feel like you're being watched?
Matthias's recommendation is you got to get people to realize that what we've got is a situation of global totalitarianism. In his experience in Europe, making people realize there's a bigger threat than the virus can cause a separation psychologically in this fusion, this hypnosis that is happening. The problem is, then you're just substituting a bigger boogeyman for the current one. Somebody else can come in and manipulate that. The real problem, and it gets back to your core point, we're sick as a society, and we have to heal ourselves. And one of the things we have to do is come together. We have to recreate our social bonds. We have to buy into integrity, the importance of human dignity, and the importance of community. That's how we get out of this. And I think that this insight of Matthias Desmet is really central to kind of making sense out of all of this crazy. We got a world in which the press is incentivized to push a storyline because they're all controlled by the same large funds that Pfizer is, and so is tech. I don't know how we're going to get out of it, but it's got to start with us, all of us.
There has been ideas that we see connections in everything. So something along the lines of Monster 666.
The letter Vav is also the number 6. Short top, long tail. Short top, long tail. You could have here in Hebrew 666 on the can. What do you see in the O? Nope. There's a cross.
Maybe it's something about inductive reasoning, or perhaps the law of large numbers. Like for a while I was studying numerology. Even something like the number 9 and how precise it was to when Jesus died. It says he died in the 9th hour. And some people who really study numerology say that 9 is the perfect number, indicating that every angle adds up to a certain amount of 9. So like a circle is 360, so 3 plus 6 plus 0 equals 9. Or a triangle would be 180 degrees, so 1 plus 8 equals 9. And everything in relevance to that.
Sparrow doesn't work. But if I use my middle name,
Walter.
51197. Isn't that amazing?
What?
It's all 23.
These are the sorts of things I was wasting my time on.
Let me explain. Monsanto's scientists found bacteria growing in a chemical waste dump near their factory, surviving in the presence of their herbicide called Roundup.
Here we have an example of some conspiratorial thinking. First off, we start off with the notion that the Zeitgeist idea, right?
The more you begin to investigate what we think we understand, where we came from, what we think we're doing, the more you begin to see we've been lied to.
Which branched off into the 9/11 conspiracy.
The plane did not cut all those core columns.
We designed the buildings to take the impact of the Boeing 707.
Sirius Dog Star.
Horus was born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis Mary. His birth was accompanied by a star in the east.
RFID chips, of course.
The ultimate goal is to get everybody in this world chipped with the RFID chip and have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips.
But really, this was the first time I had ever heard of such research. And this is what introduced me to all the other elements of conspiracies. I mean, Peter Joseph literally started the conspiracy movement on YouTube. And now I think he hates like Joe Rogan. Bill Hicks talks about the possibility of all of us being one consciousness, experiencing itself at different times.
Say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Terence McKenna spoke of how culture was holding us back, imprisoning us into social constructs that were no longer valid.
It is not your friend. It insults you. It disempowers you. It uses and abuses you. None of us are well treated by culture.
Michael Sarian was talking about the idea of hidden language of symbolism and its effects on the subconscious.
In Hebrew, Nisan means our first month of the year in their language. So this is the sun rising above the horizon. Morning star is pretty obvious. Your most famous corporation franchise in America is nothing but the horns of Aries if you look at it. And that's why it's on a red background. The rising of the sun in the morning on the eastern horizon is exactly those colors, is it not? Right?
Katy Perry is John Benet Ramsey grown up.
There was no John Benet Ramsey inside of me waiting to burst out. Alright. Now, why would she say that?
Of course, you had some extremist ideals. And really, these are the ones most people know and talk about, like David Icke's reptilian conspiracy theory, or Alex Jones talking about the Bohemian Grove and the FEMA internment camps.
Of it, and it is more than 500,000 of these giant coffins stacked outside.
The hippies and stoners really were the front runners of what was co-opted to become the alt-right movement. Some less popular ones were like David Wilcox talking about time travel.
I ended up going to a Denny's. It was the only place that was open. I had brought the Montauk book with me for some reason, even though I thought it was all just a bunch of crap. And this dude walks by in like biker gear and a big burly beard. Big guy. So you like that stuff, huh? You like that Montauk? I said, oh my gosh, this is all a bunch of crap. He says, you know, I used to work for Preston Nichols.
And David Wilcox just took it as face value. He was also the one to talk about the pineal gland and how it looked and how you could activate it, how things, the Vatican, were symbolic of the pineal gland being activated or deactivated rather. You had Bill Cooper also, one of my favorites. You had his videos out there based on his Hour of the Time segments, out there talking about the Council of Foreign Relations and the different mystery schools such as Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry.
And if you don't understand the nature of your enemy and the weapons they use, you cannot fight that enemy. You can't fight the battle. You shouldn't even be on the battlefield.
And my personal favorite conspiracy theory, my very favorite, is Alex Jones' Bill Hicks.
Now, your question.
I am really Bill Hicks, yes.
Yes, I am Bill Hicks.
As Bill Hicks, I know that better than most. Well, I was Bill Hicks before, then I staged my death, and then it became Alex Jones in 1993.
And the thing in there says, welcome to the New World Order. Do you know your way around? And
Alex Jones' Bill Hicks is kind of a new one. I had not heard that one until about 3 years ago. And he hates it when you call him that on air, so that's pretty hilarious. Some people say that Bill Hicks never died. Bill Hicks was actually FBI or CIA, and that Bill Hicks turned into Alex Jones when Alex Jones was killed after Bohemian Grove. So Alex Jones used to be somebody else. He died. Then Bill Hicks, who was actually a plant, was recruited into becoming Alex Jones. And all this yields from a notion of Apophenia. Apophenia is really the notion that everything can be connected in such a manner like this. This idea of the red thread indicating everything is not only personal to me, but it's also bothersome because it's ideology set in stone. It really is structuralism and ideology in one. Jacques Derrida had that famous saying, as soon as there is language, there are generalizations, which is very true. And when it comes to this sort of stuff, once you believe black is black, you're gonna have a lot of trouble when I tell you that gray is not black, because a lot of things that look very close to black are gonna appear black, and everything that looks close to white, you're gonna say that's definitely white. And I'm gonna say, well, there's some gray in there. You're gonna say there's no such thing as gray. There's only black and white. So this idea of red thread and tying on ideas like this can be pretty dangerous in the notion of blindsiding yourself into reality. This is not just a left or right thing. This is the sort of thing that people believe when they're stressed out. This is a sort of idea that occurs in brainwashing. And this is a sort of way to recruit through cults and stuff. Nothing is really as it seems if we just unravel a layer of ideology. It's hidden somewhere in between the radical and the normalcy. It's easier to sleep at night when things are in black and white. But the truth is that there are no monsters. It's only humans stuck in these prisons. Hasta mañana, loquitos.
I took everything she had. I watched her give her last dollar and quit in utter defeat. And then she had one more thing to teach me. Then she said, now it all goes back in the box.